I think what we've all learned here today has been exceptional. To see all of you here still in the room is a testament that we all want to work together as a region, which I believe is an imperative as we move forward here in California. And putting politics to the side, whether you're an R or a D, I think ultimately it is our responsibility as policymakers, as community leaders, as business leaders, to put the Southern California region first. And not too long ago, we were here, I want to say a couple months ago, talking about housing. And what are the next steps? And what do we do with this housing crisis? And prior to that, we were talking about poverty, how 1 in 4 children in the Southern California region live in poverty. And so when you take all of that into perspective, and here we're talking about the economy, I feel as we move forward as a SCAG region that we can continue to do great things, but we could only do great things if we all come together and work as one region. And so I think that's the message as the president that I would like to leave with all of you. But again, I want to thank you all for being here. And that's to our elected officials. And I want to give the elected officials a round of applause. Thank you all for being here and your leadership. To our amazing speakers, to the SCAG team, to all the independent economists, and to all the panelists for such an invigorating and informative day. Our closing speaker was elected as the 49th Lieutenant Governor of the state of California in November of 2010. And I just noticed that he has walked in, and he has an amazing presence, and so you feel the energy when he does come in. Right, so thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for being here with us. His top priorities have been economic development, job creation, improving access to higher education, and bolstering California's environmental leadership. Lieutenant Gavin Newsom came from a successful background in both the private sector, starting over 18 million businesses and creating more than 1,000 jobs in local government. He has served as supervisor and later mayor of San Francisco. He is the chief architect of California's economic growth and competitiveness agenda, a blueprint for continued economic growth, and California's first statewide economic plan in over a decade. That deserves a round of applause. It charts a path for a better infrastructure, a focus on manufacturing, building up exports, and other pillars of California's success. A recent review found that over 75% of its original recommendations were implemented or partially implemented. As the author of Citizenville, Lieutenant Governor Newsom calls for a state government that is more open, transparent, and accessible to all Californians. It is my pleasure to welcome a dear friend of the Southern California Association of Governments. So join me in providing a warm welcome to Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you all very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity to come back in this forum, and I'm very cognizant of being on the tail end of your conversation. So I'll try to be sensitive to your time and your wariness about hearing from yet another speaker on this long afternoon. That said, I want to just reintroduce a few of the points Michelle made on the introduction to give you a context of why I'm here and why I think you matter and why I care. I do come from the private sector. I've had the privilege of a lifetime coming out of college, opening a small wine shop in San Francisco, Plump Jack, with one part-time employee, Pat Kelly. Remarkably, she's still with us 20-plus years later. We now have 23 businesses up and down the states, hotels, wineries, and restaurants, and as Michelle said, close to 1,000 people that we employ in the state of California and now out of the state in the state of Colorado. And I say that not to impress you, but sincerely to impress upon you my bias, a strong bias towards entrepreneurialism, a strong bias to the private enterprise. I came across a wonderful quote a number of months back from, of all people, Winston Churchill. I had thought I had exhausted all the quotes from Churchill, but this one had particular resonance, and I think has particular resonance in the context of this conclave today. Churchill said of private enterprise, he said, "Some people see private enterprise as a tiger that needs to be shot. Some see private enterprise as a cow that needs to be milked. Not enough people see it for what it actually is, a healthy horse pulling a sturdy wagon." I thought that was a wonderful way of distilling the essence again of my bias. I have extraordinary admiration for people that put everything on the line, take risks. Yes, sometimes for riches, but also risks for new beginnings. It's the spirit, I think, that defines the best of our state. The state of dreamers, right, of doers, of entrepreneurs, of innovators. California, a state that's long prided itself on being on the leading and cutting edge of new ideas. We love saying it, don't we? The future happened here first. California, right? Innovation and entrepreneurialism running through our veins. So that's the bias to which I bring to this conversation, and I hope at the end of my short remarks we'll have a chance to have that conversation. But it's with my eyes wide open that I also am here. I recognize you're here 7 years after you began this process. We went through a process of triage. We went through a process of solvency. We pushed back the worst things that could happen, and you're here now at this hinge moment of sorts, reflecting not only on the past, but this moment, and looking to the future and asking yourselves, what's the plan for greatness? How can we go on a journey together to reconcile the self-evident challenges that still remain persistent in the state of California? While we've enjoyed a cyclical recovery, in so many respects we have not enjoyed a structural recovery. This is a state, you know this well, that tends to do a little bit better in the good times, tends to do a little bit worse in the bad times. In so many respects, the last 7 years has just been timing. Those of us that have enjoyed some opportunity to participate in this time could take a little victory lap. Not sure we deserve it, but it's a nice thing to do, because it's right to celebrate your successes. It's right to celebrate the wins. I think it's right to applaud the president-elect for stepping up and stepping in. I certainly wasn't and am not a supporter of Donald Trump's, but you know what? I appreciate someone that picks up the phone, makes a case, keep jobs here in this country. I remember one long ago that a lot of my Democratic colleagues, and I am a proud progressive Democrat from, yes, that 47.5 square mile city that was once described as 47 square miles surrounded by reality, San Francisco. But I remember some of my Democratic colleagues condemning and criticizing that stubborn governor from Texas coming in casing our joint, right? Coming here on hunting trips, hunting for jobs in Southern California. We sort of dismissed that. I never did. I admired that. I like folks that step up their game. I like folks that are making their case for their state, for this country. You know, I think we need a little bit more of that. I think we, frankly, rest on our laurels a little too much. We're really good here in California talking about the good old days, right? But the world, in so many ways, we invented now is competing against us. We have to step up our game. And you know what? Good enough we know. There's that old Texas song or slang or saying. It says something like this: you continue to do what you've done, you'll get what you got. It's not true anymore. You can't continue to do what you've done and get what you got. Not in a world where average is over. You recognize it's the rise of the rest, a no longer connected but hyper-connected world. We're not just competing with cheap labor. That was the old mindset. We're competing now with cheap genius. The world's not just interconnected but truly interdependent. Rules of the road have radically changed. There's a change, you know this, in the nature of change. I could talk about a hinge moment. It's a hinge moment maybe in the history of this organization as it relates to this particular summit over the last 7 years. But you also recognize it's a hinge moment as it relates to your own personal lives as well as professional lives. You're recognizing the world's plumbing is radically changing. Something's happening to the architecture of the world. Going from something old to something new. The industrial economy has run out of gas. It's in atrophy. It's stalled. You see it everywhere. You see top-down, large, hierarchical institutions giving way to some things that are radically different, and it's happening in real time. Government, for the elected officials, you recognize we're on a collision course with the future, right? The world, our constituents have been all conditioned by Amazon, and we are still handing out forms in triplicate at the DMV. It's true. We're on a collision course with the future, and that future is now here. Donald Trump is I think, symbol of that wrecking ball. People are distrustful of top-down, large institutions. The industrial economy has run out of gas. So we can't bring into this conversation now, looking forward, not back, over the course of the next 7 years, and bring the mindset that brought us to this moment. You cannot maintain a framework where we're bringing industrial thinking in an information economy. My office, you should visit, is in South of Market in San Francisco. I'm with 40 startups. This is why I'm not allowed to wear a tie. I'd be caught dead with a tie in my office. Every 6 months, 40 new small business folks come in and come out. They cycle out. A number of years back, there was a company that came in and visited us called Momentum Machines. I'm like, what the heck do these guys do? I was interested. It was one of those little conversations after work downstairs in the common area, and they said, our job is this. CEO, San Francisco-based company. He says, my job is not to make employees more efficient, it's to obviate the need for them. Momentum Machines is going after the 3.6 million jobs in the fast food industry. Momentum Machines just made a deal with McDonald's. Momentum Machines just sent me a note saying, we thank you for your advocacy and support of the $15 minimum wage. You helped us with our second round. I'm serious. He said, business has never been better. What they do is simply this. Go Google it, right? I'm speaking. I'm not making any of this up. Obviate the need. Not make them more efficient. Obviate the need for them. They make perfect hamburgers every 10 seconds. 360 to 400 every single hour. The average per unit cost savings of the 2 to 3 line cooks is anywhere from $90,000 to $135,000 a year. Going after 3.6 million people to automate the fast food industry. They're already piloting this technology, and they'll be opening up literally in weeks on Folsom Street in San Francisco their own independent unit with the finest meats and the freshest produce at the cheapest prices anywhere. That's the world we're living in. I was up there in Sacramento. You all know the buzz up there. Everyone thinks the biggest economic development strategy is just keeping your team or getting some new team, and everyone's patting themselves on the back. We got that new arena built. And by the way, for Sacramento, it is a big deal to have the Sacramento Kings. There are exceptions to this rule. Football, I'm not sure, but basketball and baseball, I am a little bit more open-minded. And for the Kings, it was a big deal, not only for them to stay in Sacramento, but from a jobs perspective, it promoted wonderful things. Read an article in the Sacramento Bee the other day. It begins with this, talking about all the new security guards they hired. And the article begins, for just $6.25 an hour. $6.25. Well, there's a minimum wage in Sacramento. You read on, you realize these folks aren't impacted by the minimum wage. These new employees have all 5 senses. Yeah, they can smell chemicals. They can read facial expressions. They read license plates. They also print out 3D CADs. They have a big data component. These larger robots are available for $6.25 to do everything that people could do in the past. The head of Nightscope, look this up as I speak if you choose. The head of Nightscope has on his homepage the following, encouraging now this technology not just to be used in Sacramento or at arenas nearby, but across the country. He says the following: no workers' comp, no pensions, comma, no complaining. I'm not making it up. Look it up. What world are we living in? I was just down at Facebook literally yesterday. 74,000, I was told this. I can't verify it, but it was interesting. They said there's 74,505. This was the exact number I was given. 74,505 people employed at Facebook and Google combined in 2015. And it made you think, what was the peak employment at that little company Kodak in 1975? Just Kodak was 145,000 people. You think about how massive Google and Facebook are in terms of their imprint and presence. And it makes you think, a lot of these companies that I embrace, I support, I celebrate, that, you know, get an outsized amount of attention, that have given us searches and friends and apps. They've given us all that, but they don't necessarily give us a lot of jobs. Something's happening in the plumbing of the world. We're going from something old to something new. If you actually believe that the economic pressures in this country are exclusively related to globalization, well, you certainly have a lot of support in Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. But I think you've missed the entire story. You know this. Manufacturing growth in this country has gone through the roof. This is a fact. Between 2006 and 2013, manufacturing in the United States of America actually grew by 17.6%. That's a fact, objective fact. But employment was flat. There was a study that came out the other day. McKinsey said if you had productivity in 2000 in manufacturing, we would have the equivalent of 20,900,000 jobs in manufacturing. Today, nationwide, there's 12.1 million. Automation. Wait till they all wake up, these Trump supporters, and realize those jobs ain't coming back. The manufacturing may. But what's the modern American manufacturing facility look like? You all know this, right? It's a man and a dog. Right? The dog's there to make sure the machines are safe, and the man's there to feed the dog. Something's happening to the plumbing of the world. Oxford came out, 47%. That was their number, 47%. The jobs in the United States of America in the next 10 to 20 years are subject to automation, 47%. This is real. What was also real and real fun was a drive I had last Friday, true story, 3 o'clock, middle of our commute south of Market in San Francisco, in that driverless Uber. They're already picking up and dropping off passengers in Pittsburgh in those driverless Ubers today, as we speak. In San Francisco, they'll be rolling them out in the next few weeks. You think about every category of jobs where we've been growing jobs, almost without exception, every one of those categories are also on the tip of the spear of those that are about to be first to be automated. Something big is happening to the plumbing of the world. It's not just about globalization. It's the detonation of globalization and information technology happening at the same time, changing the way we live, the way we work, the way we play. A world going mobile, local, social, cloud, crowd. And we have an education system Do I need to even say more? That is being exposed as completely trivial in the context of its ability to keep pace with the changing world around us. See, when the world gets fast, everything else gets slow, really, really slow. And we're in a period of accelerations in every respect, from Moore's Law to the accelerations as it relates to what's happening with Mother Nature and what's happening with the markets. And it requires a different level of adaptability and flexibility in our thinking. And so I offer this as a, I don't know, perhaps a parallel perspective as some of those that may have been offered on the panel. I can get into some tactical strategies, but I think it's important to ask the question, what world are we living in? And I think it's important to ask because we need to answer that question. And it's a question I've never, just never, it's only been there 6 years, but I've never heard it once asked in Sacramento. And you would consider, of all states, a state at $2.44 trillion a year economy, right? The sixth largest, 200 billion more than France, would ask and answer that question more than any other state in this nation. The white waters of change are upon us. This hinge moment is certainly technological, it's demographic, and it's economic. We're an aging and grading state. Our aging population is growing twice the national average. We're a state with more homeless, LA, than any other state in the nation, 115 to 160,000 chronic homeless, depends how you want to analyze it. 30% of the nation's welfare recipients, 25% folks living in poverty. We're a bifurcated hybrid economy. Folks from Imperial, you know this, your non-seasonally adjusted 23.8% unemployment rate bears evidence to that fact versus where I left today, this morning, San Mateo County, where SFO is 3.1%. We're living in two different worlds in the same state, but you know better. We're living in two different worlds in the same cities. East LA, Beverly Hills, East Oakland, Oakland Hills, East Palo Alto, across the freeway, Palo Alto. And so I say this as I close. We can talk about growth all day, and we should. But if we're not talking about inclusion, then we're missing the full equation. It's growth and inclusion. And I will say, as a business person, and to all the business leaders in this room, businesses cannot thrive in a world that is failing. And unless we mind that gap in a serious and substantive way, then we're in a real economic straitjacket. And that's why we cannot have a conversation about jobs and the economy without having a conversation about education. Our number one imperative, number one, if I was going to tweet out my entire comments today, it would be this. Our number one job is to make everybody smarter. That's my tweet. And it's the only antidote. An on-demand economy requires on-demand education. And as someone that did universal preschool when I was mayor, fully funded it and implemented it, someone that did college savings accounts for every single kindergartner in our public schools, the first city in the country to do that. As passionate and profound as I thought those things were, I'm now realizing that we tend to front-load education a little more than we should, and we are frankly not backloading education as much as we must. See, we all have a sell-by date. It's about lifelong learning, forever learning. And until we address the issue of what a 21st century community college system looks like, the backbone of our education system, until we regionalize our economic and workforce development strategies by connecting our universities to our unique economic regions, until we look at the world from bottom up, not top down, and realize that the state's vision for economic development cannot be sold down from Sacramento, but it's about regions rising together, and taking the attributes that define your 6 core counties, those 191 plus cities that define the work you've been doing since I've been born, and framing and referencing these things in a different mindset, then we're never going to achieve the kind of greatness that I think unite every single one of us in terms of our desires and our aspirations. We've had a plan for solvency. It's time for a plan for greatness. It's time for this state to go on a journey together. It's time for us to mind the gap. It's time for us to recognize that we've had half the equation and we need to fill it out. Growth and inclusion. You can't be pro-job and anti-business. That's for my Democratic friends. And I'll repeat, for my conservative friends, businesses cannot thrive in a world that's failing. This notion of interdependence has never been more important than ever. And I will close by saying this. All of us want to be protected. All of us want to be connected. And all of us want to be respected. The #1 disease in the United States of America today, this is my final statement, is isolation. Not my words, the Surgeon General of the United States. We have isolated too many communities in this city and in this state and in this nation. We want to be respected, we want to be connected, and we want to be protected. So in that spirit, let me just say this with absolute conviction and certainty. In our state, the best is yet to come. Thank you guys very, very much. Resolution.
Thank you. We'll get right back. We're going to take a quick picture.
All right.
Where do you want us? Oh, you want us down here? No,
Where do we stand? All right. Thank you guys. Very nice of you. Love it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. What amazing remarks that you provided. Let's give him another round of applause. As we wrap up today's discussion, again, I truly want to thank you all for being here, but I also, would like to bring up to the stage, this wouldn't be possible without the leadership of one individual, and I certainly know he's going to thank his team, but, there's always a moment in time where you have certain individuals that make a difference. And I truly believe that our executive director, Hassan Arkrata, has made a tremendous difference for the Southern California Association of Governments. So please welcome to the stage our boss, our great leader, Hassan Arkrata.
Thank you very much. How could I speak after the Lieutenant Governor? Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you all for being here. To my regional council members, I think I told you this 6 years ago, that we will spare no expense to move this region forward. I remember Cheryl Vegas Walker said, don't forget we're part of the region and our unemployment rate is 25 to 30%. And my answer to her, we're one region, one state, and the Lieutenant Governor said it best. We cannot look backward, we need to look forward. And the economy forward is going to have about creativity, initiation, and technology. I recently was traveling to the Far East. I think I shared that with the Lieutenant Governor, that when you go to the airport, the Incheon airport in South Korea, and you come back to Los Angeles World Airport, you say, what the heck is going on here? We're the 6th largest economy as a state. The 6th in the world. We're bigger than France. So we need infrastructure to match that. I'm so grateful to the Lieutenant Governor, and no pressure. If you become the governor, I think you have a lot of work to do. But to my leader, the Regional Council, we hold these conferences for one reason and one reason only, to move us forward. And Southern California need to be together in this. Today, in the audience, there is about 6 or 7 of my students. In my other life, I'm an adjunct professor at Cal State Northridge. Stand up, kids. Stand up. They just had their midterm and they didn't do so well. So I wanted to punish them and bring them here for the whole day. But they are our future, right? And the Lieutenant Governor was telling them today, take risk. I'm asking all of you to remember that we are in this state, in this great state. This is a beautiful state, a wonderful state. When Mr. McClellan 7 years ago said, let us have an economic conference, the reason was, obviously the recession was pushing us toward that, but the reason is also because we're falling behind. And I can say we are in the right direction. I will promise you this, as the staff, I will always recommend to my board that they spare no expenses to move this region, this part of the state forward. I want to thank the staff who put this tremendous work. I'm not going to mention them. They know who they are. I want to thank my leadership for standing by me to put this. I just want you to know we have over 500 people today. We were sold out a long time ago. And the reason for that is we all together in making sure the future of Southern California is brighter. Thank you very much for being here. We'll see you next time.